Throughout military history, commanders have understood one fundamental principle. Disrupting an opponent's leadership can have consequences far beyond the battlefield. Modern conflicts are no longer defined solely by territorial gains or the destruction of military equipment. Increasingly, they involve intelligence, precision targeting, and efforts to disrupt the institutions responsible for decision-making. That is why I believe this episode deserves careful examination. According to publicly reported accounts discussed in the source material, the opening phase of Operation Roaring Lion reportedly targeted a gathering of senior Iranian officials, with Israeli military statements describing dozens of senior commanders being killed within a very short period of time. Those reports, if accurate, represent far more than a single successful military strike. They suggest an operation that relied on detailed intelligence, coordinated planning, and precise timing. The source also notes that some later names and events rely on reporting with differing levels of independent confirmation, making it important to distinguish confirmed reporting from claims that remain less certain. But the numbers alone do not explain the strategic significance. What interests me is the pattern. Military organizations are designed with layers of command, redundancy, and succession planning. The assumption is simple. If one commander is lost, another immediately assumes responsibility, allowing operations to continue. Yet the source material argues that the same institutional positions were reportedly targeted repeatedly over successive operations, meaning replacement leaders themselves later became targets. If that pattern is sustained over time, the challenge extends beyond replacing individuals. It begins affecting institutional continuity itself. This raises a broader strategic question. How does a security system function when leadership transitions occur under continuous pressure? Experienced commanders accumulate more than authority. They develop operational relationships, institutional memory, and years of practical judgment that cannot be transferred overnight. Successors may inherit the same title, but rebuilding trust, coordination, and decision-making inside large organizations requires time, something prolonged conflict rarely provides. Another aspect deserves equal attention. The reported target list discussed in the source extends beyond conventional military leadership. It includes officials connected to intelligence, missile development, security institutions, and nuclear-related organizations. If accurate, that suggests an effort aimed not simply at battlefield command, but at multiple pillars supporting the state's broader security structure. Again, some of these reported details are presented in the source with explicit caveats regarding the level of independent confirmation. For me, this transforms the discussion. The central issue is no longer the number of officials reportedly lost during a single operation. It is whether repeated leadership disruption can gradually affect an institution's ability to maintain continuity, coordinate strategy, and adapt under sustained pressure. The most important question is not whether an organization can survive the loss of one commander. Most modern militaries are designed for exactly that possibility. They establish clear chains of command, succession procedures, and overlapping responsibilities so that operations can continue even during periods of crisis. The more difficult challenge emerges when leadership transitions occur repeatedly within a relatively short period. The source material argues that several key military and security positions were reportedly filled after earlier strikes, only for some successors to later become targets themselves. If accurate, this represents a different strategic problem altogether. The issue is no longer replacing individuals. It is maintaining institutional continuity while leadership structures are repeatedly reorganized under wartime conditions. Another important consideration involves intelligence. Operations of this complexity depend not only on precision weapons, but also on detailed information regarding locations, communications, and timing. Successfully targeting multiple senior officials during separate operations would require extensive intelligence collection, surveillance, and operational coordination. The transcript presents this as one of the defining characteristics of the reported campaign, while also acknowledging that some details rely on sources with varying levels of independent confirmation. Institutional knowledge also deserves attention. Military organizations rely upon more than formal command structures. They depend on experienced personnel who understand operational planning, internal coordination, technical expertise, and long-established professional relationships. Replacing senior leadership may restore the organizational chart, but rebuilding years of accumulated experience is a much slower process. The source further suggests that reported losses extended beyond battlefield commanders to include individuals connected with intelligence services, missile programs, public communications, and nuclear-related institutions. If those reports accurately reflect events, the objective would appear broader than disrupting military command alone. It would involve placing sustained pressure on multiple components of the state's security architecture simultaneously. Yet another lesson emerges from this analysis. Institutions are often more resilient than individuals. Governments, military organizations, and security services are designed to continue functioning even after severe disruption. The transcript itself concludes that despite reported leadership losses, Iran's institutions continued operating while repeatedly rebuilding their command structures. That observation highlights both the effectiveness of organizational resilience and the continuing pressure placed upon it throughout the reported campaign. Ultimately, I believe this story is not simply about one reported military operation. It is about how modern conflicts increasingly combine intelligence, precision strike capabilities, institutional resilience, and long-term strategic planning. In today's security environment, the decisive question is often not whether an organization can survive one crisis, but whether it can repeatedly adapt while preserving the experience, coordination, and institutional continuity that sustained it in the first place.